Kia ora and welcome to Wellywood Wargaming. It's been 2 weeks since I recorded my last video, so I thought I'd better come back with another one. This one is something that's been asked about quite a bit from members of the community on YouTube, on Facebook and whatnot, about how to arbitrate campaigns, and I thought it would be really good now that we've got our new campaign coming up in a couple of weeks, which I'm really excited about, by the way. We've got about 10 gangs coming up in this campaign. I thought it would be a really good time to go through our actual campaign document, which shout out to Selby and Rory, who are members of the group here. They're actually arbitrating this campaign as I sort of step back and just focus on being a player for this one. But this is basically a template that we've used for the last for the last couple of years, actually, Selby and I mainly, with a whole bunch of house rules and a whole bunch of stuff that we feel works really, really well. And these have all been tried and tested throughout the several years that we've been playing Necromunda and running campaigns each year. So without further ado, I thought it'd be good to get into the actual document that we put out on Discord to everybody who plays in our campaigns here in Wellington. The first thing, I'm just going to read through the campaign basics here. Each gang will start by building a starting list of no more than 1,000 credits on Yak Tribe. Now, if you're not familiar with Yak Tribe, they do fantastic work to build basically a website that you can make rosters and keep track of your campaign lists for Necromunda. Both versions of Necromunda, by the way, and a bunch of other systems, I believe, too. But the community on Yak Tribe is awesome. So if you haven't used it or you don't use it, I'd strongly recommend using it, because it's a great tool to be able to not only build those starting gang lists, but also just monitor your campaigns as well. And, you know, just run everything from there, really. So that's Yak Tribe. But this is where we track, adjust, and manage gangs and the overall campaign as a whole. If you need any help with the Yak Tribe, please ask one of the arbitrators. So I'm just going to read from the document exactly what we put into it. It'd be great if each gang could write a paragraph or two about their gang's story and include that in the gang notes. So you notice on Yak Tribe you do have notes. Now we use that for quite a few things. We use it for, well, I'll go into the specifics of what we use it for, but it's really nice to, especially in a narrative type of campaign, to get all of your players, get all of your gangs to have at least a little bit of fluff, even if it's just a small paragraph, just on a backstory about your gang would be really cool. So we like to encourage that too. Fully painted and based gangs will gain 5 rep at the start of the campaign, which is a nice little incentive to get everything painted up. Of course, in an ideal world, that's how it happens, but not everybody has the time and energy to paint. Some people, you know, aren't very good at painting or don't enjoy painting. There are other things you can do. You can get someone else to paint them for you, or you can get a commission painter involved or something like that. But the good thing about Necromunda is you're only dealing with about 10 guys usually, 10 miniatures to paint most of the time. So it's not a huge commitment. I can say that. It's easy for me to say that because I'm a beast when it comes to hobbies, and I can pump out a gang in a day or two easily, and I do so regularly. But I do totally appreciate that not everybody has the time and commitment to be able to do that. But it's a nice little incentive just throwing this into our campaign as a bit of rep. Now, rep doesn't mean a huge amount in our campaigns, but it's a nice thing to have, and it does make a difference to how many brutes and hangers-on you can get and stuff too, so that's worth mentioning as well. Just to touch on another thing as well, we use Discord. Now Discord we use for arranging games for all of our chat and all of our gang picks that and hobby stuff that we like to put in there too, and any communication about the campaign, as well as documents and all links to stuff that we do, goes through Discord. So it'd be very difficult to join our campaign here in Wellington without at least having access to Discord, because that's where we do everything from. So that's pretty important that everybody has that. So there you go. That's the sort of general outline of the campaign in terms of, the very basic stuff. I'm going to go into the more specific side of things now. So again, if you're completely new to Necromunda and you're not familiar with running a campaign or playing a campaign, then hopefully this will shed some light on some rules that we believe, after trying and testing them out, really, really work for us anyway. The first thing is your gang tactics cards. So some think that tactics cards are completely silly. Some really, really rate them. We believe that they add a nice bit of fluff and flavour to our games. However, we have omitted certain cards because they're too powerful or they're just not very fun. But essentially, each gang that takes part in our campaign here in Wellington will get a deck of 10 cards that they can choose from. Now they can be, say for example, you're playing Cawdor, you can choose from all the Cawdor cards and you can also choose from all the generic cards as well. And you will build your own deck of 10 cards, and that is your deck for the entirety of the campaign. Now, generally speaking, every single game that you have, you're going to be pulling 2 of those tactics cards completely at random. So there's never an opportunity where you are actually hand-picking your tactics cards. They are always random in our campaign. We just believe that that's just a nice way of not being too powerful, and picking that exact same card every single game, like click every single game, can be pretty boring. So this gives you a little bit of like, you've got 10 decent cards, but you're not sure which ones you're going to get and whether they're going to be right for that particular battle. But it's a nice way of doing it. The 3 cards that we've actually omitted in our campaigns is 1, History of Violence. Now, History of Violence basically allows you to force your opponent into not bringing one of their best fighters into the game. Now, that can be really unfun. Sure, it doesn't do any damage to the gang, but I just go, hey, your leader's not playing. No fun at all. So obviously we got rid of that one. The next one is Dangerous Footing, which I'm sure a lot of people have seen. Dangerous Footing is one of the original tactics cards actually, but I force you to make an initiative check. If you fail that initiative check, you fall down a hole and go out of action. Now I can do that on a Goliath leader in the first turn, and all of a sudden you've lost your leader. So again, very unfun and very silly tactics card really, and I think most people would agree, if they've played this game, that tactics card's an absolute no-no. And the other one is Blood Money. So Blood Money, I think, is off the top of my head, is the Venator card, which just gives you loads of money for stuff. Now, I've had experiences where we've had Venators in campaigns and they've just got so much money from using this card every single time, and the Venator players themselves have said, oh, okay, I'm not going to use this anymore because it's a bit silly. So we have taken that one out. That wasn't my choice. I believe that was Rory after playing Venator's last campaign, but I could be wrong on all this. But that's in the document. So there you go. Right, the next part is pre-game inducements. Now, inducements, if you've played Blood Bowl at all, this kind of works very similar, really. And there's something that we've added to it to balance the game somewhat. Of course, Necromunda isn't a balanced game. It's not really a competitive game, but it is a tactical one. And I do feel that it can be really, really difficult to fight uphill battles in this game without some sort of mechanic that allows for things to be slightly more balanced, I suppose, and this is basically what we came up with. So, determine the crew rating difference between starting gangs. Now, crew rating and gang rating are 2 different things. Gang rating is the total cost of your gang plus all the equipment and money and blah blah blah. Crew rating is how much just that crew that's fighting in that battle is worth. Now, that makes a lot more sense than going off gang rating, doesn't it? Because if I have 3 or 4 fighters that are missing that game due to injury, they shouldn't really count for that battle, should they? So we just felt that was a bit unfair. So we moved it to crew rating instead of gang rating. You might disagree with that, but I think it's a nice way of doing it. But essentially, the gang with the lower rating may spend the difference on inducements to help mitigate the uphill struggle they may face. So the inducements choice that you've got is, for each 150 credits difference, you can take a tactics card from your deck, again at random. For each 300 credits difference, you can take an underdog card. Now you notice these are both cheaper than the standard 200 and 400, I believe it is. But then and the underdog cards are pretty good too. So for 300 credits, you can get some good stuff. The next one is custom hive scum. Now we were seeing a lot of hive scum in our last campaign because they're quite cheap. You can get a hive scum for 30 credits and give them 60 credits worth of stuff. That's only 90 credits. And that happened a lot. So we've actually upped the cost of the hive scum because I think they're too powerful for what they are. So the custom hive scum is per 75 credits now instead of 30. And you can hire them with up to 45 credits of gear, not 60. So We've nerfed it a bit, but I think it's going to be better. The other one is, of course, Dramatis Personae. Sorry, my Latin's no good, but again, these are bounty hunters and hive scum, but the gang must meet all other requirements to hire that particular Dramatis Personae, you know, such as gang type, alignment, etc., etc. Obviously, someone like Rattus Tatterskin would only be playing for a Cawdor gang, and so would the headsman, and so on and so forth. So there you go. That is the pre-game inducements part of it. Moving on now to something that we have put into it, which is bounties. Now, I think we took this system from Goonhammer. Again, massive shout out to Goonhammer actually, because we've taken a lot of ideas from some of their posts and idea, you know, stuff. And this is, I believe, one of them. I think we've just altered it slightly, but after each game, a winning gang gets a bounty placed on their head. This is a 25 credit bounty. If a gang already has a bounty, then it will increase by 25 credits instead. A bounty will be claimed if one of their fighters is taken out of action during a game in which a bounty hunter appeared on an opposing gang. The bounty hunter gets the credits, not the gang. Additional bounties may be awarded at the arbitrator's discretion to help balance against any snowballing and out of control gangs. Bounty hunters added in this way are considered to not have the "we'll get our bit" special rule. Since bounty hunters added in this way are free to the player using them, there does not need to be a rule that extends their contracts in a way to mitigate their costs. In the pre-battle sequence, after crews have been selected, if a player is playing against a gang crew that has a fighter who carries a bounty, they may roll 2d6. For every 25 credits worth of the crew's combined bounty, add 1 to this roll. So for example, 50 credits in the bounty pool is 2d6 plus 2, and 200 credits in the pool is 2d6 plus 8, and so on. So again, this is from a Goonhammer article. It's really, really good. It's really cool, provided you've got the models for these as well, of course, like all the gloriously beautiful Forge World Bounty Hunters and Dramatis Personae. I'm lucky enough to have them all and pretty much have them all painted now as well. So seeing as the majority of games are being played here, then people can just borrow these whenever they like, provided they don't chuck them around the room. But the 2d6 table that we've got here, after modification, on an 8 to 9 we've got a tier 3 bounty hunter, on a 10 and 11 we've got a tier 2 bounty hunter, on a 12 plus we have a tier 1 bounty hunter. Now there is a tier list for this on Goonhammer. Off the top of my head, the best bounty hunter, or some of the best bounty hunters, for example, Umbra, excellent sniper, would be a tier 1 bounty hunter. Someone like Vandoth the Fallen would also be a tier 1 bounty hunter, I believe. Whereas your tier 3 is your fairly useless ones like Yolanda Scorn, or I don't know, what's his face, the guy with the samurai hat. He's fairly useless too. He looks great, but he's not very good in the game. So there you go. We've got a list of tiers, and we'll update that constantly with the new books that come out and the new Dramatis Personae models. So there you go. I won't go into the specifics of which bounty hunters are good and which are bad, because it's pretty much easy to see just reading it off the page in any of those books, which ones are OP and which ones aren't. So moving on to the trading post now. So the trading post is very different in the way that we're running our campaigns. We found that things with the way they were before, with Dominion campaigns particularly, things just end up being a bit of an arms race, and the trading post was too open, too easy really. So anyway, here's how we do it. So after gang creation, the house list will be locked behind the Weaponsmith rules. Again, another Goonhammer shout out here, because it's so good. At the end of every week, the arbitrator will roll for what is available at the trading post and black market, and this will be based on the Goonhammer Lost Zone supplement. To determine purchase order, we'll be using a priority system. The default order is by ascending gang rating, starting with the lowest gang rating. So what we've done in Discord, or what Selby's done, shout out there, is created a bot to actually bring up certain amounts of trading post items each week, and the lowest gang rating gets to choose first. So it's pretty cool. You might be doing really well and you've got loads of money, but you're going to have to wait. There's only one plasma gun at the trading post, and everyone else is going to try and get it first. So pretty cool. Really, really good way of doing things, I think. And again, another sort of slight balancing mechanic there that stops sort of an arms race developing in the game. there's a few little notes to that. Of course, you will have access to Chem Alchemy if you're Escher. That's outside of the trading post. Your bullet merchant can also grant access to ammo types outside of the trading post, and so on and so forth. Now, what we've got as well is there are 25 items on the regular trading post each week, and there are 10 black market items there as well, just to represent the how many law-abiding and outlaw gangs we generally have in our campaigns. Law-abiding gain unrestricted access to the market, but their leader must pass an intelligence check to use the black market, which is quite cool. And outlaw gangs gain unrestricted access to the black market, but their leader must pass a cool check to use the normal trading post. So there you go. Now we have made some house rules on some of the skills, mainly the Savant skills actually. So Savvy Trader isn't as relevant, so instead now what we've got is this fighter visits the trading post or black market as a post-battle action. The cost of one item may be reduced by 20 credits on this visit to a minimum of 10 credits. Note that this means one item, not one type of item. A single power sword may be purchased for 30 credits, but a second power sword will still cost 50 credits. So it's still pretty good. You've got connected. We've changed that slightly. So since you do not make trading actions anymore, but instead trade in order, this skill is redundant. Amend the text to read, increase a priority for the gang by 1 when determining the trading order. So connected now actually helps you get up the list in terms of buying stuff on our trading post. Fixer as well, we've changed slightly to reduce the Fixer we've changed ever so slightly. Now we earn an additional D3 times 10 credits as part of your weekly income, provided this fighter is not in recovery. So a bit different there. It's not a post-battle action anymore. It is just weekly income now. So there you go. That's some interesting stuff. Another thing that we've changed slightly is the Omen of Fortune skill that comes with familiars. Now, if you heard us talking about Gene Stealer Cult on the latest Dome Runners podcast, which I was on, so shout out to Dome Runners there as well, you will see that all 4 of us agreed unanimously that familiars were kind of broken rules as written. So we've changed the Omen of Fortune now, which allows the pet owner, I suppose, to pretty much ignore every hit that comes their way. Now they can only use this once per turn, and they've really got to choose when they're going to use it. So it still makes familiars at 25 credits incredibly good, but it stops them being absolutely, utterly, disgustingly broken. So there you go. So the next thing on that note, on the trading post note anyway, is the Weaponsmith. Now again, this is from Goonhammer as well. But the Weaponsmith is really, really cool. So what we do now is all of our in-game loot caskets now contain what's called components. Now you get 2d6 components in each case, I believe. And like I said earlier, your house list is actually locked. So you're away from your house, you don't have supply from your house. So now you've got to use components to actually build those house equipment and house weapon items if you want. Now, it costs you a certain amount of components plus the cost of the item, the actual regular cost of the item to build that, otherwise you just can't get it. So, for example, if you wanted a basic weapon, like I'm playing an Escher gang and I wanted another las gun, I would need to use 10 components and 5 credits for that. So it's not a lot of credits, but it is quite a lot of components. So it's worth thinking about. What that means is that when you create your gangs in the initial step, you're going to want to give yourself all of the good stuff and not really bank on, it's okay, I can get that later down the line, because you probably can't, particularly if you're not getting components and you're not winning games. And another thing, making armor is 20 components, so even just a piece of flak armor is 20 components. Special weapons, heavy weapons, and field armor as well, all 20 components, so there you go. Important stuff. So, moving on, psychic powers now. This has been talked about a lot. I think I touched on it in the psychic powers guide that I did last, actually, and that was how to change the rules around maintain control, which is a simple action. Now, what we've done is we've changed it slightly so that now maintain control skills are actually usable. And here's how. So maintain control is now simple, usable, standing and active, or standing and engaged you can now use. If you're standing and active, you may make a maintain control action as a free action at the start of your activation. So it's completely free, you still get your 2 activations. Make a willpower check, adding 1 to the result. If successful, then 1 weird power with continuous effect will remain in effect for another round. So yeah, stuff like levitation, stuff like arachnosis or whatever are now actually relevant and actually usable. So there you go. The next thing is territories. So moving on to territories here, each gang will start with a settlement or an enforcer precinct if you are enforcers. A gang will never lose their starting settlement, but may lose any other territory. You also get another randomly determined territory at the beginning of the campaign, and that is your territory for the start. And we've cut down the list of the amount of territories we've got, and we've also changed the boons from them as well. So there you go. I won't go into all of them in too much detail, but generally speaking, we've halved the amount of income, and where you get like 2 free scum, for example, you get 1 instead. So we've just made them less impactful, I suppose, because some of the boons are really, really good. Some of them aren't so good, but I think the financial ones, everyone would agree, is usually too much money, especially if you got quite a few of them, then it ends up just being silly, and you're the gang that's winning all the games, and you've also got all the territory, and you've also got all the money, and it's just not fun for everyone else. So that's another sort of little bit of a way of mitigating the arms race kind of idea that new Munda has turned into a little bit. I mean, I'm an old school guy, going back to old Necromunda. I remember in my head, I don't know if it's how it was, but money seemed a lot more scarce in the old version of Necromunda, and equipment was hard to get, and it was like every week you'd have to scratch by in a campaign, whereas this version of Necromunda, everybody's got bolt guns and there's too much money, basically. That's how I feel about it, and although I love it, I think the game mechanics are the best thing I've ever played, and the lore is amazing. I think that part of it is something that does turn me off a little bit, and I think would be a bit annoying for new players as well, in terms of joining in a campaign with people who've played quite a lot. So there you go. So the other thing we do is we don't roll for scenarios. So scenarios each week there's a small list of scenarios of two or three each week, and you have to pick between those. So we don't roll to see who's actually picking the scenario. They're all generated, and they're all fun ones that go along with the theme of the actual campaign itself, whatever that theme is. The first one that we're going to do, and hopefully I will be able to get permission from all the other players to video, is the Dome Runner Royale sort of thing, which is a campaign scenario that I created a few years ago, which has worked really well. It's basically Dome Running Man. And each gang has to put forward a player who plays in this game show, and it's really, really cool. We play it on 2D terrain normally, but we might be doing it on 3D now, so I won't go into too much detail on that. But that's the first one. That's to get everybody into the campaign before we start doing the regular weeks. And I think that's going to be next weekend, so very exciting on that one. And it's important to note as well that with the scenarios, we've actually capped your earnings and capped your winnings from each scenario. So the max amount of earnings you can get from any scenario, regardless of anything, is 4d6 times 10. And the winner gets 2d6 times 10 maximum from any of these as well. So there you go. That is pretty much our campaign document just read out for you there. I hope that gives you some ideas on stuff that you can do to implement into your campaigns and to keep your players engaged and playing every week. And because what you don't want is people just coming and going, or just getting bored and put off the game, because we've had that before when we've made house rules that have been the wrong call perhaps, or we haven't made the call to make the house rules that were necessary to actually keep everybody happy. Now, you're never going to win every time. You're never going to keep every single member of a campaign happy, because we're all humans at the end of the day. Some people will like one thing, some people will like the other. But if you can do your best as an arbitrator to keep the peace as much as possible and make people happy and keep them engaged and keep things fun week to week, then yeah, it's definitely worth it, I would say. So like I said, We've got about 10 people in the new campaign coming up. 5 or 6 of them are newcomers to Necromunda pretty much, so that's going to be really, really great to see some fresh new ideas coming into the game, whether they've come from 40k backgrounds or whatever, or have just been long-term admirers and wanted to get into the game and now they've found a way into it. I'm really excited about the new campaign, so yeah, stick with us and we'll be back really shortly with some battle reports from the new campaign. I'm going to do a series of real comprehensive guides to each of the gangs in the entire game. I'm probably going to start with the house gangs and then move on to the non-house gangs as well, but I'd really like to do all of them. It is quite an undertaking though, so bear with me on that one. I imagine the first one I'll do will probably be Cawdor, seeing as they're the best gang, or at least in my opinion they are. They're the most fun and I love them the most, so I'll probably start with Cawdor plus alphabetical order and all that. Anyway, peace out, thank you so much. Please like, subscribe, share, do whatever you can, and hopefully you enjoyed that. Thank you.